Hey, it's Coach Micheal Burt. Welcome back to another episode of the Big Table Podcast. I'm here at the Level 10 Studios at the Greatness Factory. I do believe everybody is looking for a seat at a much bigger table. I've written about this extensively in my books, 8-Figure Skills Stuck in 6-Figure Vehicles, which is one of the most popular books that we have out right now, and $1 Million Days, which is the newest book we have out. Both of those focus on a formula that we're going to get into today around finding your primary skill, locating the exact problem that you are uniquely qualified to solve, and distributing your talents through the right vehicle. The title of today's podcast is called Control Chaos. And you say, well, why is it Control Chaos? Because a lot of people look at what I do and they may think it's chaotic. I want to replace that word with dynamic. Okay? It's more led by inspired impressions, instincts, which is what we would call the prey drive, and big table moves that move us toward the B goal, okay? So you're going to see me break down how a lot of people use the entrepreneurial operating system by Gino Wickman, which I think is a brilliant system, but I feel like it lacks in revenue production and a focus on revenue. I also fundamentally disagree that you need to wait an entire quarter before you make a shift. And I see this as one of the biggest mistakes that I've made in my life. I see other people make is they choose something, they stick with it for a quarter. In my opinion, if you're really, really skilled and you have a heartbeat on the market, you should be able to shift much quicker than wait till the end of a quarter. Now, I know the argument that people are going to make is, well, you need to see something through to its logical conclusion. But after 34 years of doing something, I can tell you, did it work immediately? Did it not work immediately? Should we stick with it? Should we shift gears? Should we be psychologically flexible? Should we, right? And this is what I don't see a lot of people do. It's like, hey, we need to just stick with it. Well, it's not working. And I want to go back to when I was an athletic coach. If we ran a play and it didn't work, we may run that play one more time, but we wouldn't run it 30 more times. We wouldn't run it for 90 days. So if you're out there watching the podcast and you're trying to get a seat at the big table, we first have to get some basic foundational things in place. And then we need to move toward what we call our B goal. And the way I'm going to break this down for you today is, if it's not working, how do we shift gears quickly? One of the biggest mistakes I've ever made in my life is sticking with something that wasn't working. And I knew it wasn't working, or it was people that weren't working. And I kept saying, well, let's give them 90 more days. Let's give them some direct feedback to see if they change. Let's hope for the best. When in reality, deep down in my core, I knew that it wasn't working. And I had seen enough evidence that it was not going to work. So if you're out there watching the podcast today, you may think, man, I stick with things too long. Are you open to changing your strategy? Are you clear in your aiming point? Could you have multiple aiming points that you're moving toward, right? It's like, what's working and what's not working? That's really the intent of what we're going to break down today. So let's start with some criteria. When you hear me say that the big table is the biggest game in business, it's the biggest opportunity that is available to you that has the highest return on your investment, highest return on your objective, highest return on your energy, right? There's these returns. It's also highly enjoyable. It's highly profitable. It's highly meaningful. So everything we're doing is moving toward one aiming point. I've seen people that have one business. They have one aiming point. We want to build, grow, scale, and exit the business. We want to sell for $100 million. I was with the guy this week who said, I want to build this company in 3 years and sell it for $500 million. Pretty clear aiming point. Some people have a clear B with multiple aiming points, which means they're going to use their skill to solve a problem. And it's like, we're going to generally head in this direction. And I'm going to kind of pick and choose which of these opportunities. There's a return on my energy, there's a return on my investment, there's a return on my objectives. It's highly profitable, highly enjoyable, highly meaningful. This would be me. I don't have just one aiming point. I have multiple businesses, and I'm like looking at these businesses going, okay, which of these businesses deserves the majority of my time? It's like, because this one could be highly enjoyable, could be highly profitable, could be highly meaningful. We could get from A to B faster in this business. Let's call that a vehicle. Than this business. So you would see me get involved in various things. I know some people disagree with this because they believe diluted focus equals diluted results. I don't think I have a diluted focus. I think I wake up and have a primary skill. I use that skill to solve various problems. And then I look and see which of these problems could we solve that would return on our investment of time, energy, money, opportunity. And what if you get bored with doing the same thing for 30-something years? And you're like, man, I'd like to take on this responsibility. Or this activates my prey drive. Or I'm interested in this. So you may look at that and go, gosh, man, he's got all these things going on. Because people use that against me. They're like, well, he's got a private equity company and he's invested in data centers. And now he's sponsored by a coffee company called Nashville Grind. And now he's getting involved with this insurance company. It's like, no, that may work for you to do one thing. Like one of my coaches was Dan Sullivan. He has one company. Strategic coach. He doesn't do anything else outside of that. That is his belief. For me, I would be bored out of my mind doing one thing for 40 years. So it's like I am more interested at 49 years old and going, okay, what is the skill I have? What's the biggest problem that I could solve that I would enjoy solving? It's like I like a challenge. I like an exit. I like a liquidity event. I like a strategic partnership. I like the combining of talents together to create a synergy among people. Okay, so how many different problems could I solve with this skill? Okay, and then which are the vehicles that we could utilize to get from A to B? So think of it as I'm at A, and here are my frustrations. Okay, so I look at the businesses I have, and I go, okay, this business is hard, this business is easy. This business is miserable, this business is fun. This business has true scaling power, this business doesn't. Maybe I do this to do that. Out of everything I do, which are the things I enjoy doing the most? That could be highly enjoyable, highly profitable. There's internal profit and there's external profit. Which ones activate the prey drive? Which ones deactivate the prey drive? Which ones have true exit power, liquidity events? So when you're doing the exercise, and this is actually exactly what I'm teaching my students this week at the Greatness Factory, it's like we're going to start with A and everything we don't like about A, which is our current position. We're going to go, man, I don't like this business because he can't exit it. Or maybe I'm not thinking about this. Could someone strategically acquire the business? Could there be a strategic partnership in the business? Could you bring your parts and somebody else bring their parts? There's a lot more possibility than you think. So we're going to start with our frustrations, and then we're going to say, how many people in the room have one clear aiming point in the business? Here's an example. The coaching company gets to X number. That's an aiming point. Okay? I'm amalgamating companies together, putting various companies together for a big exit. Okay? Like I'm doing this with a bunch of companies right now. Why would I do that? Leveraging reputational capital, key relationships, bigger exits, bigger financial payouts, and it's much easier. Okay? So what if you have one B goal? We call that an aiming point. Or what if you have a B goal which just says, I want a liquidity event. I want to build 50 greatness factories and sell those greatness factories. Or I'm going to raise capital through a private equity fund, pitch equity, and build greatness factories. And then the greatness factory is going to rent back from the holding company. We're going to take the real estate, package it up, and sell it when we have 50 of these. Whatever your B goal is, okay? It's like, could you have multiple aiming points? Or is there one central aiming point that you get there in multiple ways? Okay, so when you think about this, you're going to need some things here. You're going to need some psychological flexibility, which is a combination of boldness, striking fearlessness, and remarkable boldness, and openness to new opportunity, to have this kind of controlled chaos I'm talking about, or what looks like controlled chaos, versus your quarterly rocks through your entrepreneurial operating system. I'm thinking dynamic, you're thinking static. I'm thinking let's shift from day to day, you're thinking, and you're like, well, you never can build some momentum doing this. No, I prospect every day. I follow up every day. I try to create sales every day. I'm just looking for different ways to get to B. What is B? Could be the liquidity. Could be the exit. I'm trying to get you to think about this different versus linear thinking, okay? So when you think about it, you're going to need a lot of psychological flexibility. And that is a combination between remarkable boldness, the willingness to move towards something even if you don't know how it's going to work out. And you're going to need the ability to change gears quickly, to shift quickly. Now, as I'm talking about this, I'm also thinking like, you're not going to be able to do this if you don't know your primary skill. If you can't articulate how you're going to solve a problem, you're not going to be able to do this. If you're in the wrong vehicle, you're not going to be able to do this, what I'm talking about today. So psychological flexibility is a requirement to this control chaos formula. Hey, this is Coach Micheal Burt. I'm here at the Greatness Factory today, the Level 10 podcast studio. And as you can see behind, I got new imaging. I got a new concept. The big table is a metaphor for the biggest opportunities that are available to you that you're trying to work toward in your life. We're going to go to work on activating 3 parts of your nature. You first, that's science of winning. That's habits of the top 1%. That's the language that we use every single day. That's the activation of prey drive. That's the A to B exercise that we do. And then we're going to go to work on your business. And the business is got these 6 core components, right? The activation of your team's prey drive, the explanation of value, the lead generation system, the follow-up and conversion, the engagement after the sale. We then move to activating your wealth. 8-figure people stuck in 6-figure vehicles. How do we expose you to some of the best thought leaders in the world as it relates to what's going on in the market, how to make investments, how to raise capital, and put all this together, folks, and we are getting a seat at a much bigger table. I'm Coach Micheal Burt. I can't wait for you to see this podcast. It's called The Big Table. We're going to help you secure your seat there. Follow along, engage with me, and hit that subscribe button. Number 2, I want to teach you how to evaluate faster. I was a basketball coach for 16 years. Everything was based on statistical probability, studying of the competition, deconstructing how we could win, and then formulating a path and a plan to beat the competition. Okay? If I got into a game, no matter if it had worked 20 straight games, we could have won 20 straight games, and all of a sudden, it's not working. Everything works until it don't work. If we're in sports, how long do we stick with this plan? Maybe a few minutes, maybe a few plays, maybe one half, but we always shift at halftime. In business, people stay with the same broken strategies that are not getting results for years. So I got to get you to think more like a sports person, okay? So step 1 is we need to evaluate faster. And this doesn't have to be based on quantitative data. How many of you are out there doing something right now that's not working? You know it's not working. It's a recurring problem for you. It creates anxiety in you, but you just stick with it because it was one of your quarterly rocks in your entrepreneurial operating system. We're going to just keep doing this terrible strategy because we met in a meeting, we mapped out the quarter, and we can't move to B because we haven't accomplished A. This drives me crazy, guys. I see leaders who do this, and it's like, no, that's on quarter 3. We don't tackle that until quarter 3, right? We got to kind of suck the sour here for the first 2 quarters to get to quarter 3 because it's on our quarterly rocks in quarter number 3. And that's when we got to do it because that's when we said we're going to do it back in the leadership meeting in January. Look, it's not working. Shift. Stimulate. Try something. Be willing to change. Have psychological flexibility. Evaluate faster. So you're going to need this ability to say what's working. Qualitatively means I can't measure it, but I can feel it. When they fired Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, they paid him, $80-something million to get fired at this job. And they asked the athletic director, why did they let him go? Okay. And he said, because I just didn't feel like the program was moving in the right direction. Why do they fire football coaches in the middle of the season? Sometimes even after they have a win, because the athletic director feels like it's just not heading in the right direction. There's no momentum, there's no energy, there's no fan base. Like my alma mater right now, Middle Tennessee State University. I bet they don't have 15 fans going to the football games. They've won 1 football game. They hired a football coach last year. He hasn't shown a demonstrated capacity to build any momentum or to win football games anywhere he's been. There's all of this negative momentum in the press every single week on social media. Can we please get rid of this person? And here's what they say. Nope, we got to stick with him because we got to pay out $3 million to get him out of here. Well, it's probably costing you $15 million, just to be honest with you, because he's not any good. Okay, so why not just say we're headed in the wrong direction? Why not just say we're not headed where we need to go? See, that's qualitative and quantitative because he's not winning any games. And I don't know the guy, so I don't want to be negative toward him. But there's qualitative measurements and there's quantitative measurements. Qualitative means I can feel it. Quantitative means I can measure it. Okay, so how long do you stick with something on your quarterly rocks? as part of your EOS system when it's not working both qualitatively or quantitatively for you in the business. We got to evaluate quick, like sports. Now, let's finish with this. A lot of people look at what I do. I come up with an idea, and I say, I'm going to write a book on this idea. And I've even had advisors and people tell me, well, no, why would we write a book if it's not going to be a big book like War and Peace, and we're not going to go to a publisher? Why would we write a book and push it out to the marketplace when it's not going to be this big Wall Street Journal bestseller? Well, how about for energy? How about for leads? How about to have a new message? How about to be able to do a workshop? See, this is the concept of when some people look at things as chaotic, like that's a lot of control chaos. I want you to think of it as more dynamic. See, what you're seeing as chaos, I'm seeing as dynamic. Energy is dynamic, static, and tropic. There's 3 phases of energy. It's either ascending, plateaued, or descending. So when you're thinking about getting a seat at a big table, it's like, I'm testing this. I don't like the way it feels. I'm out. Qualitative. I'm testing it. I don't like the numbers. I'm out. Quantitative. Okay? And I'm willing to shift a gear. I was just in a meeting a minute ago with a new company called Nashville Grind, and I'm going to have a partnership with that company. They're going to be official sponsors of the theater and the podcast and all of these things, and we're trying to get people to buy this coffee, and I'm going to have this special brand of coffee that's like whiskey branded coffee, which should be interesting. And it's like Coach's coffee, and I'm like, how do we get people to buy the coffee? Because they can buy coffee anywhere. I'm like, what if I did 4 weeks of coaching? It's called Behind the Grind. It's a 4-week series at the end of the year. To get into the series, you got to buy the coffee because we're looking to sell the coffee. And they tell me it's just damn good coffee. Okay? So when you think about it, it's like that's a decision that I make at the end of a 3-hour meeting after I've listened and absorbed, after 34 years of experience, like this is how we can sell the coffee. This is how we could stimulate. This is how we could get a brand out there. This is, right? And if you really understand marketing, it's like, okay, what can we do to stimulate something? So is that chaotic that we come up with the plan November the 11th that we execute at the end of November through December? Or is it actually using a primary skill to solve a problem through the distribution channel of the vehicle? And by the way, the people that buy the coffee could buy the coaching. Who knows, right? Because we don't need more money, we need more people. The people have the money. So circulating and moving with a message, with a big mission, with a lot of movement, with a clear path to monetization is part of my person of interest formula. So I would ask you, if you're watching the podcast today, are you too controlled in your business where it's got to be normalcy? We got to do the same things every day, whether it's working or not working. Or do you have the psychological flexibility to think like a coach and go, hey, I tried it and it didn't feel right. I'm going to try something else. And do you have the spontaneity to go, I'm going to spin up something new right now while we're in the room? And we're not going to come up with all the reasons we can't do it, operationally or timing or your schedule or no. We're just going to go, let's get it into movement. Money follows energy. Money follows movement. Money follows circulation. Money never follows stagnation. Let's replace the word money because it's just a piece of paper circulating about the world with opportunity follows movement. So what I'm trying to get you guys to see today in this Big Table podcast is if you're wondering, how does Coach Burt think? How did he think about building a greatness factory? Well, it's going to be $8 million building, and I first thought of it like co-working. Then it's like, no, it's a private club. No, it's a hub of energy. No, it's a place that now we're licensing to people. We got a group that wants to license 10 of these in California. I just met with a person in Tampa that wants to have Greatness Labs powered by the Greatness Factory. It's like, what if I would have sat around and thought about it for 10 years? And I go, well, it's on my goals for 2028. I'm going to sit down and have one Greatness Factory. So this is the problem with a lot of people. Controlled versus dynamic. Static versus dynamic. Small moves versus big moves. When you study quantum leaps, and I'll finish with this, and I've studied nothing but quantum leaps over the last year and a half. I've worked at the foot of a master in Price Pritchett in quantum leaps. This is the guy who wrote the book on quantum leaps. When you're going for a quantum leap, it's got to be a big goal. There's no clear path in how to get there. You're not going to be able to sit down and map out how to do it because you've never done it before. And the analytic brain will never allow you to do this. It's like, well, it's got to be perfect. No, it doesn't have to be perfect. We need to get moving. We need to get it into action. You focus on the ends versus the means when you're pushing toward a quantum leap. My version of the quantum leap is the big table. It's the biggest game in business. You may be going down this path and figure out that really that is the biggest opportunity over there, and you could never get there in this vehicle. You may not have a talent problem, you got a vehicle problem. So, do you have the psychological flexibility to move toward a big target and then even shift gears and make a hard right when it's not working? Or are you fixed on what you wrote down at the beginning of the year in your quarterly rocks, right? Like if I hear one more time a person say, well, we're not doing that until the fourth quarter. Like that's for quarter 4. Are you just going to suck in quarter 3 till you're forced to make a change? Or would you say, hey, it ain't working. Day 1 of quarter 3, it ain't working. Shift, move, be flexible. All right, I'm Coach Micheal Burt, another edition of the Big Table Podcast. Typically I have a guest for these podcasts. We're going to be bringing in some more guests, but today I thought this was a good topic, control chaos. How do you eliminate quarterly rocks and be able to shift fast when things are not working? If you're looking for a seat at the big table, go to our website right now, fill out a form, say, I'm looking for a coach. I'm sick and tired of playing in the minor leagues. I'm sick and tired of being an amateur. I'm ready to leave my amateur desires behind and get a seat at a much bigger table. We got to change your thoughts. We got to change your actions. We're going to change the outcomes. This is the exact things I'm coaching people on every single month here at the Greatness Factory. This is the exact topic I'm actually teaching on at the Greatness Factory this week for all of our students who are coming in, how to have this flexibility to move toward a much bigger goal. I'm Coach Burt. Everybody needs a great coach in life.